Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an increasingly rare episode of Author Insights, where I get to interview some of my clients who are authors about the stuff they do and the stuff that I do for them in terms of, designing book jackets and book interiors, that kind of thing. And today I'm welcoming onto the show someone who is just above my head on this Zoom call, but is actually several thousand miles away in California. Let me welcome to the show none other than the lovely Linda Peters. Hello there, Linda.
Hello, everyone. And Henry, thank you so much for having me.
You're
This is
welcome. You're welcome. And we should perhaps reveal to the viewers and listeners that we've had two stabs at this already. So we're well rehearsed for this first part of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's start by pointing out that Linda Peters is your real name, but your pen name is LL Peters, yeah?
LL Lewin.
LL
Yes.
Lewin, big.
Yes.
I can't even get that right today, can I, Linda?
Yeah.
LL Lewin, goodness me.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
how did that come about? Is that a pen name that you've used for other stuff as well?
That was my maiden name. And so I was always triple L. So I wanted to
Right.
stick with that.
Yeah. And in
Yeah.
fact, one of the things I did for you was designed a logo for LLL Press, which
Yes.
is the imprint that you've created for yourself, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. Now, as it happens, you write fiction and you write very interesting kind of fiction. It's been lovely for me, a challenge for me. We've bounced around some really creative ideas, very stylish, impactful covers that I think have an air of kind of mystery about them. I think that would be fair to say.
Yes.
And they've been really great fun to do. But first of all, before we start talking about the novels as such, give the listeners a bit of background about yourself, where you live and what you do for a living. Obviously, you're hoping to be a massively successful author for a living, but for the time
Yes.
being, that's kind of a second job. So what do you do during the day, Linda?
Oh, yes. Okay. So during the day, I'm actually a teacher. I have been teaching for many years. I got into it because I started coaching soccer. So
Right.
ever since I was about 4 or 5 years old, I've been playing soccer.
Brilliant.
My mom used to joke that I was dribbling a soccer ball before I could walk. So, and I played in college. I played Division 1 soccer,
Wow.
football to
Yeah.
you. Yeah. And so I went straight out of college. I started coaching high school soccer teams. And then I really loved working with kids. So I went back
Right.
and I got my teaching credential in physical education and health education.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So what sort of age group are you teaching?
Now I'm teaching middle school. So 12 and 13-year-olds,
Oh,
that,
right.
that fun, awkward age, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's cool. That's cool, though. And of course, as someone who's a soccer fan, you've probably been following the Euro Championships that have been happening over here, in which
Yeah.
England was involved right up to the last moment. It was all a bit
Yay.
disappointing at the end, but never mind, never mind. It was
But
quite an
still,
achievement.
they
But
got there.
still, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things you've mentioned to me previously is that you're interested in and studied psychology. Is that right?
I did, yes. So I got my BA in psychology and social behavior.
Wow, that's cool.
Yes,
That's very
yeah.
cool. And of course, I have an interest at the moment because I've just launched a new podcast called Inside Your Head, which is all about psychology, mental health, and that kind of thing, which I know that you very kindly supported that initiative as well.
Yes.
So, and that's going to be going live soon, but that's a subject for a different conversation.
I know, but I can't wait. And just how important mental health is
Yeah,
as a teacher.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
for you.
And in
Yeah.
fact, the guy that I interviewed for the first episode specializes in the mental health of young people and children. So there we go. There's a particular relevance, I'm sure. Now, so you're a teacher,
Mhm.
but you're not an English teacher as such.
N-
I think
No.
a lot of people who are teachers and go into writing, it's because they teach English literature or something of that kind. So that's kind of interesting that you've made the leap into professional writing. But you say you've been writing stuff of one kind or another ever since a very young age.
Oh, yes, yes. Very young. Started with poetry. I love creating stories. So I always felt like I'm a storyteller.
Right.
And then I went to many writer conferences and kind of got I had uh, editor who helped me out a lot. It was almost like a 4-year college education in 2 hours,
Right.
and he thought he would never see me again. I mean, he
Right.
was brutal, but
Oh,
I love
right.
oh, yeah, I was like, "You're gonna see me, not only, I'm gonna come back stronger." So, yeah, so storytelling is just it's always been a passion of mine, and,
Fantastic.
I got into it seriously, wanting to change careers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just what drives me, and I'm so lucky
Yeah.
to have the summers off, to
Yes,
really get
sure.
into it. But my sister reminded me. She was my maid of honor, and she told a funny story how she turned in a paper of mine as her own, and she was in 8th grade and I was only in third. So
Wow.
that's like at that age, that's a huge difference. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, and she still got an A on it. And so we were laughing, and I was like, I really need to get back into this.
That's
So,
amazing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's
yeah.
one step beyond plagiarism. That's actually taking your paper and presenting it as a right. That's wonderful cheek there. But hey,
Yeah.
you got an A. She didn't really
Yeah.
get an A. You got an A.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's a great story. Uh, Now, the thing is that uh, a lot of people, when they think about becoming a writer, they will, sit down, bang out a manuscript, however long it takes them, and then send it off to an agent and wait, or maybe send it off to several publishers and wait. You decided not to go that route. You decided to take the self-publishing route. So that's really interesting. Of course, that's how you came to bump into me. This is how we got together to collaborate on your books. But I know that that's not a path that everyone dares to take. So tell us a bit about what drove you to go down the self-publishing route rather than the more traditional route.
Right, right. Let's see. A while ago, I wrote new adult and chick lit, and I was trying to go down the traditional,
Right.
querying agents all the time. And this was probably 10 years ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
back then, I would get the rejection letters. I got lots of those. And you
Yeah.
just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And then this time, I went into young adult and I
Mm.
thought about it, and I didn't even get the rejection letter. There was just crickets. You're checking your
Yeah.
spam, everything. I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to really look into self-publishing, and I would never change anything for the world.
Mm.
It has been so much fun, and I truly believe everything happens for a reason. And
Yeah.
just like what my books are about, I think I was guided to go this route, and
Right.
so happy I
Right.
did, because I can't imagine my covers being any better. You are so talented, and it's
Oh,
just
bless you.
been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for
Yes.
saying so.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been fun to do. I mean, I think a lot of the work you get, not every author is open to the creative input of the designer to the same extent. Is that
Oh, no.
diplomatically enough? Is that just
Yes,
diplomatic
no,
enough?
it's just I
You know,
love the way we work, and you just see if I say something, you see it too, and it's better actually than I could ever imagine. Each
well,
cover,
I think
just
it makes the difference that when you're working with an author who's very open to ideas, and I think that particularly in the genre that you're working in, it does need something that's a bit creative, a bit different. Something that creates an atmosphere. We'll come on and talk about that in a minute. Staying on the kind of self-publishing thing for a minute, because I know almost all my clients are self-publishing authors, and I think it'd be interesting to hear from your perspective how you found that journey. I mean, first of all, what made you think of self-publishing? How did you, because not everyone's even heard of self-publishing still. They still think it's a weird thing. Oh, what do you mean, vanity publishing? No, 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 no. That's a totally different thing. That's a rip-off. That's a scam where people take your money and give you almost nothing back in return. Now, self-publishing it's a huge industry. It's well established, highly respected. There are some big name authors who are pulling out of traditional publishing. I mean, I think of people like Stephen King, for example, who are pulling out of traditional publishing and saying, I want the rights to my manuscripts back, and now I'm going to self-publish them. Um, So tell us about your journey into self-publishing. How did that happen? What is it that kind of tipped you over the edge to decide, yeah, this is what I want to do?
I went to many writers' conferences and I would take classes, going traditional or
Mm,
self-publishing, and it was just something you had to really think about.
mm,
And so I started researching, and I was just so glad. I am so happy to be a part of this group. I feel
mm.
like we're tougher, we're stronger. I
Yeah,
I didn't believe people when they would say, writing the novel is the easy part. And I was like, oh no, that, it
yeah,
can't be.
yeah,
But everything has just been such a great learning experience.
yeah,
And so I watched a lot of YouTube videos.
yeah,
And like I said, I truly think I was guided. I found Joanna Penn, who is
yeah.
incredible.
She is, yeah.
Um, Great advice, and which she led me to you. So I just, and it's so funny because, like I said, I was triple L, and I saw your name, and there was something about it. I'm like, Henry Hyde. That just sounds good. I want to work with him.
Oh, that's nice. Are you listening out there, people?
Where are you?
My name is the thing that you should, be
Yes.
guided by. Absolutely. That alliterative name. So I'm HH, you're triple L. Hey, there was a marriage made in heaven. What can I say? Really interesting that you mentioned Joanna Penn
Mm.
there, known online as The Creative Pen. Her website is thecreativepen.com. She really is a stalwart of the self-publishing industry. She was one of the first people who kind of really put her head above the parapet and started, you'd have to say, kind of evangelizing self-publishing as a way to publish, but in a professional way, making it clear that this is not vanity publishing, this is real. And they're certainly increasingly, why would you work potentially for months or years on a book and then end up with 10% royalties? This is a journey I've been in, having been traditionally published, and trying not to feel bitter about something that took 5 years of my life to write and design, and then you get paid a pittance for it. Which, there's just a sense of innate justice, I think, apart from anything else. But yes, as you say, there is a learning curve,
Oh,
which
yeah.
isn't necessarily for everyone. So what would you say have been the main things that you've bumped into along the way that you've made you go,
Gosh.
oh man, I never thought about that aspect of this. I never thought about that aspect of it. What have been the major
Oh.
kind of learning curves for you, Linda?
First of all, I never take myself seriously. I just laugh and I'm like, okay, the next time it's going to be even better, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So major, get a copy editor.
yeah.
My dad, who is a total scholar, it's just not good enough. So that was
Yeah.
one I published. I had some really good feedback from reviews saying that, they wanted to give a higher rating, but there was just too many typos. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh, that's
wow.
something that, why didn't I think of that? So hopefully I
Yeah,
can help somebody,
yeah,
before you do your final publish. Yes, get someone you don't know, pay for it. It's worth
yeah,
the money.
yeah.
Um, Let me see. There's just, if there was a wrong way to do something, I have found it. Um, with my social media, you just have to be out there, which
Yeah,
when I'm with people, I am with you. I'm not on
yeah,
my phone. I'm not, taking pictures.
yeah,
And so I'm trying to capture those moments. Just,
yeah,
you have to be, you have to, it's especially self-publishing. I mean, it's a social world. So you have to be on social media all the time. So I'm
yeah,
learning that. I'm getting better at it.
yeah.
Because I was so private before. I would
Right.
say that. But the amazing experiences was just being in the process of everything, the
Yeah,
cover, your interior,
right.
just some of the characters that we came up with, just the design, just to,
Yeah,
I wouldn't have been a part of that if it had I gone the traditional
sure.
route.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, there's, I think, a lot that you're excluded from in traditional publishing, and one hears horror stories of authors just being told this is the cover of your book, and they've had no input in that. And oh yes, this is what the interior of your book's going to look like, uh, which the expression I'd use is gatekeepers. Traditional publishers have always traditionally acted as gatekeepers, making the decisions about who they're going to allow through the gate, who do they consider good enough. And as someone who's interested in psychology, I think it can be hard enough when you're a writer. So often you get that devil on your shoulder telling you that you're frankly crap at everything, and this is what you're writing is rubbish, and no one's going to be interested in it. You've got enough of those battles already without them being patronized and told, no, they're there, leave everything else to us, it's nothing to do with you, which is just awful. And yes, the self-publishing process, steep learning curves, yes, and
Yes.
trial and error, learn from mistakes, all those classic things. Yes, often people notice the first typo once the printed copies come back from the printer and you're on page 3 and it's like, how did that get
Oh,
through? The title of that chapter is misspelt or something. It's often the big
yeah.
things, funny enough. So yeah, you have my sympathies. And I think the other thing is, you touched upon the social media and stuff, haven't you? And I think a lot of writers, not all, not me, a lot of writers though are kind of introverted,
Yes.
and they're very happy sitting in the engine room cranking out the words, and doing the writing. But then the thought of having to go out into the big wide world and promote and market their own book is kind of terrifying, isn't it?
It is. It is. So, but you know what? You have to have thick skin and just think outside of the box.
Yeah,
So, my book has to do a lot with astrology.
yeah,
And so I went for astrological influencers just to
right,
see, and got some reviews of their opinions and just kind of tap into that
right,
metaphysical world too, which
yeah,
is a part of it. Just trying to get those main fans and then
yeah, yeah,
reach
yeah,
out. So
yeah,
yeah, just try everything. And I have to say, can I say this? The Alliance of Independent Authors
yes,
has been my saving grace. I
yeah,
mean, if you have any question, they will
yeah,
answer it, and just an amazing group to be a part of. So I would
yeah.
definitely suggest that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So that's another short shout out to Joanna Penn and Orna Ross
Oh,
as well, who runs the Alliance of Independent Authors,
yeah.
which we know as Ally, ALLI. But I'll put the link to the Alliance of Independent Authors. In fact, it's on the homepage of my site where people can find it. If you're thinking of self-publishing, I would say that's step one. Step two
Yes.
is go to Joanna Penn's site and sign up for her newsletters and stuff, which are always massively informative. And she does a brilliant, I can't remember how many podcasts she's done now. She's done hundreds of podcasts on the subject of self-publishing, and she interviews some really interesting people. So yeah, that's a really great shout out for that. And obviously, when it comes to marketing, this is why I offered to do this for because
Yeah.
I think it's good. Not just good, it's kind of necessary these days, isn't it, for an author to let people see them literally.
Right.
And media like YouTube and Facebook and all these things are so critical nowadays. The danger is you can get kind of burnt out as well, just round the clock. I'm setting up my new business, the inside your head thing, and I'm going through the same process of, oh God, right, I've thought of the name, so I better buy the domain name. Oh my God, that means I better set up a Twitter account, set up an Instagram account, set up a Facebook account. Should I have a Tumblr account? I don't know. What about Twitch
Yeah.
and all these other things, it's like, and you
There's
have to know your own limits. And then, oh my God, I've got to build a website and make sure the website's linked to everything. And should I have an email newsletter? It's an endless kind of thing that can just take over your life, and you can almost kind of forget that somewhere in amongst all this, you're supposed to be sitting down writing novels, right?
right, right.
So anyway, let's get on to your novels,
Yeah.
because you've got 2 released already and a third one in the works. And as you mentioned earlier, you actually started out in kind of chick lit and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a transition. How did that come about, that you moved from that kind of, what people would think of as kind of rather glamorous kind of side of the
Right.
publishing world into kind of young adult and very interesting, based, very highly based on astrological stuff as well. Tell us how that came about, Linda.
I literally was driving to work one day. I will never forget. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I just said, you know what? I am teaching the youth. And I said, I need to write young adult. I'm around them
Mm,
every single day. And
mm,
I came up with my character's name in the car. I was like, Aries. And she is going to be a typical Aries,
right,
just how you would think of stereotypical astrological sun sign of an Aries. And so
right,
that's kind of how I built her character. And they're very strong, determined. They're the first of the zodiac. Because what I put her through, she needed to have that
right,
strength.
right.
So even if you're not into astrology, I'm not cramming it down your face or anything, I'm
Yeah.
not, you can still follow the story, but I have as a writer, I kind of always have based my characters off an astrological sign. I
Oh,
think of
right.
those characteristics and then I develop the character. And so when I got to work, I didn't want to teach. I was like, I just want to start writing. I want to start this. And so and I don't know what made me think I am going to make this a trilogy.
Right.
I had never written a trilogy before, but it was going to be a trilogy. And so I actually started probably in 2014.
Mm,
So that's
wow.
and like I said, I took some breaks. It wasn't necessarily writer's block,
Mm,
although during the second novel, midway through, I felt like I wrote myself in a corner and I was just kind of like, how am I going to get out of this? And
yeah.
about 6 months later, it turned out great.
Mm,
So,
right.
yeah. And I so my main character is a medium.
Right.
She can hear spirits. So her mom recently passed away
Mm.
and for some reason she can't communicate with her, but her death is foul play. So that's where
Oh,
the
right.
mystery comes along.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
spirits are helping her to, try to discover what really happened to her mother.
Yeah.
So as I was researching some mediums, I was just kind of looking at their mannerisms and, things they would tell
Mm.
me. I became really good friends
All
with
right.
one. Yes, yes, we're really good friends still to this day. In fact, she told me that I always need to write with a moonstone. So I have
All
my
right.
moonstone, it helps me channel. But she told me I was writing a spirit story in modern time.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was just coming through. And the funniest thing was, I'm like, well, I want to hear his or her story. I want to hear
Right.
what happened in
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so I kind of just kept going. And as I was writing the trilogy, things would happen to me. So she would say, signs like a dragonfly or a hummingbirds are signs from spirit, and I would see them all the time. I would constantly look at the clock, and it would be 11:11 or 5:55. Those are things that I kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
write in the book that's happening to her. Before she
Mm.
sees the spirit. There might be a lot of bees or something.
Right.
Every time I used to see a coin in the street, I was like, oh, I would just leave it. But now I always pick it up and I look at the year because that might be a sign
Oh,
from
okay.
spirit. Yeah, so it's just fun learning all this stuff, and then it would start to happen. And so I'm fascinated with it. I do not have the gift at all. I wish I did,
Right.
but I love being around people that do.
Okay.
So yeah.
So, in terms of the writing, are you a plotter or are you a pantser? That's always the question, isn't it? Are you someone who sits down and plans out the story in framework form beforehand, or do you just sit in the chair and start writing and see where it takes you?
I see where it takes me. For anyone who's into astrology, I am a triple Sagittarius, and that will make so much sense to you. We don't plan anything. So no, I would just sit in a chair, and it took so many different directions, and all my characters are all tied in, and
Right.
I never started that. In fact, I had one character that was supposed to be the antagonist, and I ended up loving him. And I was like, I am just going a different direction now. So
All
I
right.
don't ever plan anything. But yeah, so the third book is already written. I have it, it's completed, and I answer every single question. So there is nothing. I know that a lot of authors, they like to leave something to the imagination,
Yeah.
but I always hated that. I'm like, no, I have to know. So
Right. So
everything is going to be answered.
everything's neatly tied up at the end of the trilogy. So it's a
Yes, into
proper trilogy. It's not a trilogy with a chance of it being a
no.
quadruply or whatever the heck it is when there's 4 or 5 books, so that's interesting. So that, do you find that because you are a pantser essentially by the sound of things, that means you find, I need to go back and edit that and change that, because otherwise none of it's going to make sense if you've changed direction, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, I think I can't even tell you how much has been edited. In fact, was it Michael Crichton who said books aren't written, they're rewritten?
Yeah.
That is 100% true.
Yeah.
So, yes,
Yeah. The craft of writing is in the editing. That's my view. But then that's
absolutely.
also me, having been a magazine editor for 10 years. You there's a wonderful quotation. Was it Oscar Wilde who was asked by his editor to submit a 500-word piece for the Times or something, and Oscar Wilde turned up and he said, "Oh, it's 5,000 words. I didn't have time to write 500." Which is
Yeah.
often true, that as a writer you can just blurt stuff onto the page, but actually hacking it down to something that's a length that someone wants at 500 words or whatever, that's the hard work, and
Oh,
that's often
yeah.
the case with novels. I mean, there's someone who I helped do some book jackets for a couple of years ago, and she's someone who I would say definitely has a furore scrivendi, because when we first met, she'd already written more than 1 million words
Wow.
of stuff, and I was instrumental in persuading her to trim that somewhat. So that it could be, and to be divided up into, instead of one vast War and Peace volume, be divided up into several books, of about 80 or 90,000 words each, and that sent her away with an awful lot of hard work to do for quite a long time. But anyway, that's kind of the nature of writing, isn't it? Let's talking about the astrology and stuff a bit, because I'm someone, I was born a Gemini, I'm
Yes.
told, and towards the end of May, but I've never been interested in astrology, so I'm quite interested. You say that someone who isn't interested particularly in astrology can still follow the stories and enjoy the books. So that being the case, then, is there lots of stuff in the books that people who are really into astrology would get more from?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll make remarks here and there. So, like Scorpios, they're known for their eyes. So she'll comment on a character's, my main character will comment on a character's eyes. Oh, yes, of course, you have the Scorpio eyes. Um, but it's not nothing, if you weren't into it, I don't think it would distract you either.
Mm.
And at the end, the final book, I'm going to put every single character's sun sign and just see if you are following astrology, like, oh yeah, that person is a Capricorn, or
All
yeah,
right.
that
Okay.
person. I don't tell every single character what they are, but in my head, that's how I developed their character. So
That's
there's just
kind
a
of
few.
interesting. So
Yeah.
because obviously it's a big part of your writing and a big part of your life by the sound of things. So when did you get interested in astrology and that kind of stuff?
I think I had somebody, my sister and I had a natal chart reading. And that's when I found out my sun, moon, and rising were all Sagittarius. And the woman who was doing the reading just freaked out. She's like, oh my gosh, you're a pure Sagittarius. Like they thought maybe I was going to start jumping on the tables or doing something. And I was just kind of looking around like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just, ever since then, have always been so fascinated by it. And so
Mm,
I follow, uh, the sun, is in Cancer right now,
mm,
or, just things that are happening. And it's
mm,
just always, some people don't believe in it, and your daily horoscope probably isn't, going to be
mm,
the best representative. But if you had your entire natal chart reading,
mm.
it can explain a lot. And so my book, actually, the title, Neptune's Window,
Yeah,
has to do with that. So the planet Neptune can be about illusions and betrayals, things you're oblivious to. So my main
right.
character, as a medium, she has a window into what other people aren't seeing,
Ah,
Neptune.
right.
And so the funny thing too is my in Neptune is Sagittarius. So people say, I don't even know how Sagittarius I am.
Right. So that's important. We've mentioned the name of the series of books, Neptune's Window. And in fact, I'm working on kind of a logo for the series of books at the moment. But there's the 3 titles. Tell people what the titles of the 3 books are individually.
Yes. So it's Neptune's Window, First Glance. So you're getting a first glance inside Aries' world and an introduction to a lot of characters. The second is Neptune's Window, Deep Stare. So now you're going further into all the mystery and drama. It's a lot of high school drama as well. And a couple of new characters are introduced. And then the final is Shattered. So Neptune's window is shattered. It's like the window is shattered and you
Yeah.
know everything.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously we don't want to give away too much about the
Yeah.
stories, but you did mention that they're kind of young adult.
Yes.
So from your perspective, what kind of age group do you feel your readers are going to be? Because I know it can happen that in some books the actual character's a bit older than you'd say is young adult, but younger people aspire to the kind of characteristics that these slightly older youths have. So is that the case in your books?
Yes, yes. My main character is a sophomore. She's 15, but a lot of the other characters are seniors in high school. They're
Right.
older, 18, 17.
Right.
But it can appeal to any age group. I've had many adults read it and they
All
enjoy
right.
it. They're like, I forgot high school could be that brutal. She goes,
Yeah.
she goes through, she gets cyberbullied. Everything that you think could happen in high school is going to happen
Mm.
to her. Yes, yes. But
So,
she's very wise and about like older than who 15 years old, then you
yeah.
would think of that.
So the style of the books, there is obviously, as I mentioned earlier, there's kind of a sense of mystery that pervades the stories. Are they action stories? Are they thrillers? Are they kind of more kind of sit and think about y type stories? Tell us a bit about the nature of the stories.
It's definitely narrative thrust. It's not something that's scary, like edge of your, you're going to be
Yeah.
able to sleep at night,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
she is talking to spirits.
Yeah.
But each chapter is a cliffhanger. It is a super, super fast read.
Right.
But it's mystery and constantly keeping the reader on their toes.
Right. Great.
Yes.
Great. So you've written Shattered. Is it at the
Mhm.
editing stage now?
Yes, I just need to have a copy editor, just look through it one last time, but
Yeah.
it's ready to go. I'm holding it hostage though. I need more people to get on board.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm about to design the cover
Yeah.
for Shattered as well, which is it's an interesting project because it's a slight departure from what we did on the first 2. Don't want to give anything away. People will find out themselves in due course. But that's really exciting. And after Shattered comes out, where are you going next? You got more novels inside you of a similar
Oh yeah.
nature or totally different stuff? What are your plans?
Absolutely similar. I'm going to stick to the afterworld theme,
All
but this
right.
time my characters, I'm probably about chapter 6 with this new. It's young adult,
Oh,
but they're not mediums. They don't know that the spirits are
right.
going to help them. And there's 2 POVs, so from the male and then from the female
All
perspective.
right.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So you're already well into that then.
I,
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah, I have the covers. I want to show them because you're so creative. Can I do that? Can
Of
I show
course
my
you
book?
can. Absolutely
Yes,
you can. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is First Glance. I
Yeah.
don't know, because it's showing.
Yeah, people can see that, and I'll post it on the site as well when I
And
do
Deep
this.
Stare. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, they're just so great. I love them so
Can you put them
much.
side by side? Because I think people will see
Yes.
the kind of theme. The first one is the one that's on the right as we're looking at it, the first glance. And so you can see there's this individual female figure, rather mysterious. You can't see their face and stuff. Does that figure represent someone in particular?
Yes, that's the main character. That is Aries. And I was worried people might think it's a different girl, but here she's so much in the light that I
Yeah,
was thinking that makes her hair lighter, but it
yeah,
is actually, yeah, dark. She has dark
yeah.
hair.
Absolutely.
So
And
the details.
the third one, as I say, is going to be all quite dramatically, moving in a slightly different direction, a very dramatic cover. That will be revealed in due course. So what's important at this point, of course, is to ask you, Linda, after all this work you've been doing, getting yourself going on social media and stuff, and obviously there was a colleague of mine who's helped you build your website as well, right?
Yes. Oh,
Kat
yes.
Morgan of Seaside Web, give a shout out to her. So where can people actually find you, Linda?
They can find me at LLLewin.com.
Yeah.
I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at LLLewin3.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you got a Facebook page as well?
I have a Facebook page, yes, LL Lewin. And then also I'm on Goodreads and Amazon.
Wow, Goodreads. Now that's a scary place. A lot of authors find Goodreads to be a very scary place to be. How have you found Goodreads?
I think it's so great. I think it's definitely something you should do. It is scary. I get that. I had someone rate my book and it wasn't even published yet. So I don't know if they were rating the cover. I don't know what they were rating, but yeah, so you never know. Like I said, thick skin,
Yeah, yeah,
but I
yeah.
definitely would recommend it.
Yeah, yeah. And what they say about Amazon is you're not a proper writer until you've had a 1-star review. And I know this. I know this from my own bitter experience from my first book when it was published. It got a 1-star review, and the comments were nothing to do with the content of the book. It was something like "damaged on arrival" or something like that, which is like,
Yeah, you didn't
what can
deliver
I,
it.
what can I do about that? Nothing. But there you go. You just have to kind of shrug and hope that the better ones come in to rebalance the average. But it can be very annoying. Linda, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure doing this with you, and I'm sure that the readers and viewers can see that you're a really good person, and
Oh,
frankly, your books deserve to do well. They're cracking
thank you.
reads, exciting stuff. If you happen to be into kind of the metaphysical stuff, I'm sure there's a rich vein that you can mine there. But even as someone who's not interested particularly in astrology, other than confessing that apparently I'm a Gemini and that means something, that
Yes.
they're great books. Good
Oh,
luck with the third one in the series, folks. Go out and buy them in your droves.
thank
They're
you.
available on all the usual platforms. They're available on Kindle. They're in paperback. Are they available in hardback as well yet?
No, not in hardback. No, just
Maybe
paperback and
when it's time to do the collector's edition,
there you go.
there
Yes.
you go. Once you've won the Booker Prize or something like that. Brilliant. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Linda. Good luck with it.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone for listening.
You're
It's been a
welcome.
pleasure.
Fantastic.
Bye.
And enjoy the rest of your day in California, because it's evenings approaching here, but I'm sure you've got the
Oh
rest of
yeah.
the day ahead of you there, haven't you?
Yes, it's just starting. Afternoon.
Fantastic.
All right.
All right, Linda. Thanks so
All right.
much. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Bye.